The geek culture website ICV2 has released their financial analysis of the year 2018 for hobby board games. They have been doing this every year since 2013, where they talk to industry insiders and look at different financial reports that are released by various companies and come up with their estimate of where hobby board games fell for the year, how much money they made overall, and in which different categories. For the year, hobby board games in 2018 sold a total of about $1.5 billion. But the reason that we are really discussing it today is because for the first time since they started analyzing this, there was a decrease in total revenue, which is a 3% drop from 2018 between that and 2017. And a lot of that came from one of their categories, which is collectible games, which had a 14% drop, which is fairly significant. However, right around the same time, there has also been a report released by Hasbro about their Q1 of 2019.
Yeah, so Hasbro, if you don't know, we've talked about many times on our news shows, was having a bit of trouble, especially with Toys R Us closing. Mm-hmm. And throughout 2018, their stocks have been dropping. But it turns out that when they report for quarter one, it was expected that their stock would have a 11-cent loss, but they actually got a 21-cent gain, which has made huge money for them and a huge increase in stock value.
Yeah, they said that it was for Q1 2019, a 20% increase in sales versus Q1 2018, which is a lot.
Yeah,
which is really big, and also some of that was due to this, like Magic Arena, their digital end.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we thought this was interesting is because, as you said, one of the biggest losses in 2018 was card games, but the company that owns the biggest card game has just reported a huge increase.
Right, I have to assume that, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh!, there's some big ones out there. Like, I gotta think that the big bulk of that category is Magic. And so yeah, it's really what I'm curious about, what I want to discuss is how do we feel about that drop? And do we think that, for a long time, I always think of Magic as just a juggernaut. But I occasionally think, is there going to come a point where it does drop off, where it loses popularity? Seems like it will never happen right now, but based on Hasbro's earnings in recent years, it seemed like, maybe it is becoming less popular, but now it's coming back up. Do you see a reasoning for any of this?
I think same reason that Hasbro had a bad year in 2018 is why everyone, I think Toys R Us. I think whether we like it or not, if you go to Target, or any of the big sellers, board games are usually lumped with toys. We might want to say, no, it's an adult game.
It's art.
But it's still seen that way. So when Toys R Us closed, whether they were huge in selling board games or cards or not, everyone sort of wasn't sure how they're going to land on their feet. Even like Target, Walmart, and Amazon, they weren't sure how they were going to handle selling. Like, are we now going to be more in charge of that? Should we grow that up or should we not? Because they went out of business, so maybe toys aren't where it's at or stuff. Mm-hmm. But, we still saw board games starting to open up more in the Target and Walmart area with a lot of exclusives. Like we mentioned, I think Target had the adult joke versions of a lot of the Hasbro games.
Right.
I think the Millennial Monopoly was a Walmart one.
I cannot keep track at this point.
But a lot of exclusives like that. And I also think Magic had a lot of products that were disappointing that year as well.
Do you think that, why do you think it's bounced back? Do you think they've done better?
I think Arena, it was one of the things he said. Mm-hmm. The digital version, they've been pushing that a little bit more. And if you watch bigger Magic channels like Tolarian College, they could do a lot better. Like, they include codes in their physical packs that would make people want to go back and forth more. Mm-hmm. But they just had a Twitch online stream, I think, that made a big deal and made some waves. They invite Hearthstone players to play the Arena and stream for them, try to get people from the Hearthstone community on the Magic side.
That's fun.
And in an interview, they also reported that they've seen more growth in the international sectors, including Europe. So that's probably a big deal.
Yeah, that's true. This ICV2 report is, again, strictly for North America. So it's hard to say. Maybe some of those sales are, like you said, overseas. Also, I think it's interesting to note, even though it sounds like a real dire thing, that's the first year there was a drop. But it was, it's still, if you can read the full report, of course, we'll put a link to it. It's still really high. It's still like the second highest year besides last year since they started doing it. And role-playing games in particular which is interesting because that's also Wizards of the Coast has a big hand in that with Dungeons and Dragons. Those had a jump of like 18% from last year. So they almost had the opposite growth for card games.
I definitely think part of the card games is, like I said, I don't know about Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! At all. I don't follow them as much. Magic had a lot of products that were frankly really disappointing, I feel. I don't think a lot of people were excited about them as much. This year, they've already announced, they just had their War of the Sparks set, which is pretty much their Avengers Endgame. They had like all their big characters come in, one set. They announced Modern Horizons, which is a special set just for modern players. So everyone's really excited about that. And I think that they listened a little bit more of what they delivered to Magic. So I think Magic started getting back on their feet there. The Transformer card game just came out, and that just came out the end of 2018, near the end there.
Like fall 2018.
Yeah, and they have 2 new sets coming out. One just came out, one that's coming out later May, I believe it was, which is really surprising because that's like a month between sets. So they're really trying to push their other products, and maybe they're trying to, now that they're trying to be bigger, if they're growing in Europe, maybe they're trying to push their own board games there more.
Yeah, and I mean, I know like role-playing games make sense to me because we've just seen a huge, I think, a trend of growth for mainstream audiences in role-playing with things like Critical Role, and the 5th edition, I think, has been more accessible. It just seems like that, I mean, their streaming has made it really huge. Like that growth doesn't really surprise me. And it sounds like most other things either grew a little bit or maybe fell a little bit, but mostly around the same level.
The big issue I think trading cards will have to hit is a lot of their market, because that drop they probably reported, I don't know if they count, is secondhand. Because a lot of people might be buying less packs because they're like, I'll just wait until I can buy it, instead of buying both
singles and things like that.
So I don't know if that report included that.
Yeah, I don't think it's specified exactly what that is made up of. I think it was all because comic book stores and things like that and online stores do sell singles, but they might have only been counting the actual retail product.
But they're definitely going to be something to watch out for too, because Magic, we keep going back to them, but I know they just made a deal with Amazon and Walmart, Target, a lot of stuff. They said that they're not reporting not giving an MSRP anymore. So I definitely think that while we're like showing Hasbro's growth, it's like, okay, the board game, it's not the end of days for board games.
Sure.
I do think your friendly local gaming store, though, is not out of danger just yet.
Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. I also am not an economist.
Neither of us are.
So I don't know if maybe just in general there's it's related to how everybody's doing these days. I truly don't know exactly what the correlation is, if there is one.
If I know anything from our friend who plays Eclipse, everyone just decided to go bankrupt in order to move ahead.
Yeah, that's usually the best strategy. It sounds like overall our industry, the gaming industry, is still doing very, very well. And it's
I don't think we've hit that plateau I always am fearing about just yet.
No, definitely not. And I will, I think definitely most of that drop had to be from Magic, and it's only Q1 2019. It's we still have plenty more of the year to go, but it will be potentially frightening, potentially uplifting to see if that carries through their uptick for the rest of the year, or if it's a one-off thing.
Well, the thing that worries, because when we say Hasbro, you have to realize, even though
we're talking about their gaming division,
right? But when that stock increase was everything,
was all of Hasbro,
and part of it also is because Hasbro Pulse was introduced, which is a much better site to get product from them. Like, if I can't find something in a store, they have it there, and it's straight from the horse's mouth. And they may focus more on that, like just the figures and toys and stuff, and maybe Magic Gathering Arena. So we have to hope, just because Hasbro as a whole goes up, just keep an eye on the card game and stuff too, the physical card game.
Yeah, again, we're going to have a link to that report in the description, and you can see all the breakdown of the different categories and how each one did compared to previous years. It is really very fascinating to look at and think about why this might be. And if anyone watching is a business person or an economist, you can maybe leave a comment about your take on this analysis. Or if you're just a consumer, maybe you or other people you know anecdotally were some of the people who didn't buy as much last year of any particular trading card game. I think that they did say that another big jump was non-collectible miniatures games.
Yeah.
So maybe you're someone who's maybe people have maybe things like X-Wing have taken some of that market because it's less random, maybe there, but still has kind of that same kind of collector's mindset to it. There's a whole number of possible things that we could speculate about, but if you have ideas about them, leave them below, and hopefully we'll not have any crashes in our industry. Everything's going to be fine.
There is no 3%. Bubble.
It's only 3%. It's like nothing. Talk to us about that there. You can find us on social media elsewhere in our description below. Anything else you want to add before we go?
No, of course. Don't forget to check out our previous videos released, including the viewer comments for last month. If you do comment this, odds are when we do a viewer comment for the next month, you'll be listed there.
Absolutely. My name is Jonathan.
My name's Will.
And this was Roll for Crit.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome board game content from Roll for Crit.
And please leave a comment. We're lonely.